Now, the number one mistake I see people make when they're relocating to Fort Worth is they tend to have this perfect picture painted in their mind, right? And what tends to happen is the facts don't necessarily line up with the dream.
Like damn, where can I start? Like damn, where can I start? Wake up and get to the guap. I'm trying to clean every block like a mop. I'm on the phone, can't wait till it drop. I'm going hard, me go at the top. Get these bitches out my cup. Ain't number 24 on the clock. Looking like down, looking like down, looking like down. Where can I start? Swimming that water, we see sharks. When we crash, it's not.
Now, I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. When I first moved to Dallas back in 2015, it was almost a full year before I even stepped foot into Fort Worth, right? Fort Worth really wasn't that interesting to me, and the city has these certain type of stereotypes. Now, the fact of the matter is, the stereotypes are every bit of true. People really wear cowboy gear. Yes, they really sell cattle downtown, and Fort Worth is a much slower pace than Dallas. But what everybody forgot to mention is just how progressive this city has become, and it shows in the growth that they've had over the last 5 years. I've lived in a few different cities and states across the country, and I'd say Fort Worth has a lower cost of living than the national average. I'm even surprised to say that groceries in Fort Worth were a bit cheaper or right in line with what I pay back in Mississippi, which I really anticipated Mississippi would be a lot cheaper. And in comparison to somewhere, say, like Atlanta, Fort Worth is cheaper all the way around. I remember when I bought my first home in Texas, it was over here in Fort Worth, right on the border of Arlington and down the street from AT&T Stadium. I bought a DR Horton Express home, which that's one of their builder grade products, which is pretty basic, right? Basic finishes, all the basic flooring, all of that sort of thing. Now, I bought that one for $175,000 in 2019. I'm talking a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,700 square feet, new construction house. Yeah, those were the good days. Don't we all just wish housing was just still that cheap, right? Now, on the flip side, you can rent a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom anywhere from $1,700 to $2,300 per month, depending on the style, depending on the building and some of those luxury amenities that you may want. Now, from a real estate perspective, the median home price in Fort Worth, it's around, $365K. Now, the one thing I've noticed with working with YouTube clients relocating here over the last year is they don't actually move down here to the city, right? They actually move out to the suburb. They move out around the city and then they commute down here to work. We've been able to find them nice communities that fit all their needs, and they're just about 20 minutes outside the city center. We help people move to Fort Worth all the time. We know the areas, we have those relationships with the builders, and we can make sure that you don't pick the wrong area to move to, because that will be your number one regret if you move on down to Funky Town. So if you're thinking about making a move, feel free to reach out. All of our contact info is down in the description below and pinned to the top of the show. Now, as more and more people decide to call Texas home, we're beginning to see the median home prices rise even with these higher interest rates. The Dallas-Fort Worth metro is booming, so don't expect any type of housing decline here in the metro. I think gas here is hovering around $3.40 at the time of this video. Eggs are like $2.50. A gallon of milk is around $3.20. Now, look, I know we're all feeling the rising costs with inflation being so high, so just take that into consideration before you move.
Now, one of the areas that leave a lot to be desired for is going to be, the crime in Fort Worth. Now, I'm always going to keep it 100 with you guys and just be honest. And according to neighborhoodscout.com, Fort Worth's crime rating is a 9 out of 100. And that just sucks, right? Like a 9? I was really shocked to see this number when I was doing my research for this video. Honestly, I take my family to Fort Worth all the time and we've never had a single issue. It's always a good time, we feel safe, but I do recognize we keep to the more popular, well-known areas of the city and don't really venture into places where crime is a little more likely. So my opinion may be a little skewed from, another person's experience, but according to this website, there are some crimes happening in certain parts of the city.
To put my address in like I don't know where I stay. She know my phone number by heart, she think I'm Mike Jones. Why I had to put her down in the ice age. Where I'm from, you come through late, you don't do that alone. You brought that face out the boondocks, how long did that take? With your dog, she can't go left, be with him right or wrong. Everybody around me top, I come to my space. Everybody highlights top, I up in my space.
So I'm super excited to announce we just released our Reload Ready bundle. This is a bundle that gives you our knowledge of the Metroplex, the best areas, best food spots, best schools, and overall what to expect. And lastly, we're going to give you access to our preferred property list. This is when builders have inventory that they need to move. They call and give us first dibs. These are going to be those discounted properties you won't find on Realtor or Zillow.com. So if you want exclusive access, click the link below, become a part of our inner circle where we say less and pay less. Now, back to the video you were watching.
Now, let's talk about the weather for a moment, right? In Fort Worth, we do get all 4 seasons, and I must say my favorite season is going to be the fall. The fall is really when the DFW comes alive. Football is in the air, and it's just a good reason for people to get together. Not to mention, this is probably some of the best weather you'll have all year. The temperatures usually range from the 60s to the 90s, just depending if we're at the beginning of fall or towards the end of it. But this is the time when you really start to see, more people outside. You'll see people hanging out on the patio, spending time in the parks, cheering at the high schools on Fridays. It's just the time when people really come together. I have a nice group of friends and we get together and choose different high school football games to go to and watch on Fridays. I really think it's just a good excuse for us to get together, talk about the glory days. Now, the summer's another story. And you hear this everywhere you go. Yes, the summer is a scorcher. It's definitely the type of heat that if you leave your mascara in the car, you'll come back to a blob running all over your seat cushions. Your chapstick will turn into chap paste, and your seat buckle becomes an obstacle to avoid every time you come back to the car. Now, you'll definitely get used to it, but it's still not that comfortable once you're here. We do have a bit more humidity than I would really like, especially since we're in the middle of Texas, and I think it's a bit surprising for people once they get down here. We have tornadoes every now and then, heavy rains at times. We'll have random hailstorms. Sometimes they can be bad enough that you have to repair your roof. Sometimes the hail is that big softball size, and then other times it may just be the size of a quarter. Now, the winters aren't so bad, but we do have a few weeks in February where we get snow and freezing temperatures, and when that happens, it tends to shut down the Metroplex. Now, we have gotten a bit better over the last years, right? They're really starting to putting like salt on the roads and doing those sort of preventative measures. Listen, I lived in Denver for some time and we would get like 6 feet of snow and wouldn't miss a beat. But here in Fort Worth, if the roads ice up, then you can expect everything to close down until it melts. But overall, the weather is pretty manageable, but we do have some extremes that you need to be aware of.
Now, the third pro to living in Fort Worth are all the cultural and entertainment opportunities that you get to experience here, right? There's just a lot to do. There's tons to see, and regardless of what your interests are, there's definitely options for you. Now, if you're looking for the bar scene, we're right here in 7th Street. This is going to be everything that you're looking for, right? Take it from me, I'm 37 now, and when I was in my 20s, we were killing it on weekends down in this area. Look, it's so much more chill than downtown Dallas. That can be a bit pretentious at times, you know what I mean? It just depends on where you want to go. I have a few connections out there at some of the popular nightlife areas in Dallas, because at some of the places, if you don't know somebody, they're hesitant to let you in, but 7th Street is much more inclusive. Now, this area can be, kind of for the college kids at times, but there's some great restaurants and bars that everyone goes to. Look, one of my favorites is going to be Mashed, right? And this is one of the only places I think I've ever found that serves moonshine. The food is great, and it's a nice place to just go to the bar and mingle. There's tons of other good spots to explore, and the good thing is everything is walkable around in this area. You can leave one spot and walk down the street to go to the next great option. Now, if you want to spend some time with the kids, then you can do that outdoors as well, because we have the Fort Worth Zoo. The zoo is super family friendly with dozens of animal exhibits, which showcases, animals from the African plains. We're talking about giraffes, zebras, and even white rhinos. There are a primates exhibit, including gorillas, chimpanzees, and other animals in the ape family. The zoo is located east of downtown, so you can definitely make a day of this and just go exploring. Another good area to visit, especially if you want to take in local cultures, is going to be the Fort Worth Stockyards. Now, my grandfather was, the biggest John Wayne fan you could ever imagine, right? I mean, this guy was a farmer, and I grew up in Mississippi on our farmland. So picking peas, raising cattle is in my blood. I really believe my granddad was a modern day cowboy, but if you're looking to take a step back into the Wild Wild West, then you should definitely mosey on down to the Stockyards. Now, this is a historic district that is deep rooted in cowboys and cattle. There's daily cattle drives right here on Exchange Avenue, and that gives, visitors a taste of the Old West. I mean, some of the roads are still cobblestone, so you can imagine how old these roads are. There's also a lot of gift shops, and if you decide, to go out at night, you gotta check out the world's largest honky-tonk in Billy Bob's. Now, personally, I've never been to the racetrack in Dallas, and we have a few to choose from, but the most famous and world-renowned is going to be Texas Motor Speedway. Now, my wife loves NASCAR. And Texas Motor Speedway is located about 20 miles north of downtown Fort Worth and about 30 miles west of downtown Dallas. Now, this track is really famous for its 1.5-mile design, which allows for some really exciting high-speed races, right? The Speedway holds around 130,000 people on race days, which honestly makes it one of the largest sports venues in Texas. Most of the races are held at night, including the NASCAR Cup. You have the Xfinity Series. They host all the IndyCar Series as well. So if you're into any sort of racing or just want to experience something new, this would be a really great option. while we're still on the subject of, sports, let's not forget about Texas Christian University. Now, TCU has really been in the national sports conversation over the last 5 to 10 years. You can definitely catch a ball game tailgate from their parking lot, or just go to a local bar and watch the game with your friends. Listen, the atmosphere on Saturdays is electric, and fans swarm from all over Texas to watch the Horned Frogs play. The last game we went to, they had different alumni on the sideline, like the Damian Tomlinson, they had Cavante Turpin, and some other notable greats as well, man. It seems like the entire city shuts down when TCU plays, and it's definitely the talk of the town when they're winning.
Now, if you want something a little more laid back and just chill, right, then there's a little known spot that I like to go to and just clear my mind sometimes. The Fort Worth Water Gardens were designed by architect Philip Johnson and was opened back in 1974, right? This park consists of 3 different pools, each with their own distinct features and design, right? You have the active pool, which is the most famous, as there's different levels to enjoy as the water moves in multiple directions around you. It's definitely a great place to take, some snapshots for your Instagram profile. They also have the quiet pool and the aerating pool, which are definitely unique spaces as well. So if you're in town, want to try something a little different, you should definitely take some time and go over to this area.
Now, the last thing we'll cover is going to be Panther Island. Now, Panther Island is the culmination of years and years of redevelopment just north of downtown Fort Worth, right? Panther Island runs along the banks of the Trinity River and was created with this huge man-made lake that has, different canals that feed into it. The waterway gives residents waterfront access that otherwise would have never existed. This mixed-use district created parks, trails, housing, and other economic developments in the area, in an area that once used to be a bit of an eyesore. Panther Island Pavilion was created as an entertainment venue that hosts dozens of outdoor concerts, festivals, and other events, right? I'm a part of a local cycling group. We hit the bike trails up all the time down the Trinity River in this area. And to be honest, it's probably one of the most impressive urban trails I've been to. The combination of the river, the downtown urban scenery, and the nature is really an impressive mix. And you can tell this is an area that's going to continue to improve.
If you're coming from a smaller area and have never experienced it, or if you're coming from a larger metro and you're thinking you're going to escape it, then think again. Traffic here in the Metroplex is a constant, right? There's just so many people moving to the metro, and right now there's so many new residents flooding into the suburbs that it's inevitable. Traffic is just getting worse. Even with the cities expanding some of the highways, they're redeveloping the overpasses, and doing their best to keep up with the flow of traffic, it's still a problem during rush hours in the morning and especially after work. Now, we do have a few toll roads that stay pretty clear, but access to those depends on which side of the Metroplex you're living on, right? When I'm traveling around some days, I use George Bush, and a typical trip on George Bush all the way around is probably $10 a day coming from North Dallas area, right? Some of the major points where traffic is the worst is going to be downtown at the intersections of I-30 and I-35, 820 and I-35, 820 and 121, and then I-20 and I-35. This is where a lot of people travel coming from every direction throughout Fort Worth. I-30 and I-20 also have a lot of interstate travel coming both east and west through just Texas in general. Now, 35 runs north and south, and that has a ton of traffic as well coming from the northern suburbs like Saginaw, Hazlitt, North Richland Hills, Keller. There's actually an HOV lane that tends to be clear most of the time, but just don't get caught driving in that lane if you don't have at least 2 people in the car. I found myself in HOV roundup one morning where they have, cops set up at the exit of the HOV, and they're stopping people that are riding by themselves. So yes, I've gotten a $300 ticket for doing it, so just take it from my experience and don't risk it.
Now, from my personal experience, I really love the Southern hospitality that you feel here on the daily basis, right? When I'm walking in downtown Fort Worth, when just, passing a stranger at a coffee shop, everyone is friendly and just really receptive, right? If you speak to someone, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna smile and speak back to you. People really don't mind chatting if you're an extroverted type of person. I know a lot of people from the East Coast, it's probably a little bit different, right? It's gonna be a little bit different than what you're used to. I know how aggressive people up north can be, right? When I'm riding my bike, every time I pass someone, they wave. And to be honest, it's kind of awkward if you don't wave back. And if you're out walking your dog, just expect at least one person to stop and try to have a conversation with you. But trust me when I say it's all good vibes, right? Now, just like everywhere, there are those people that, may be going through something and they might have a bad day or having a bad attitude, but the majority of people are pleasant. And what I found is it really just depends on what the vibe is that you're giving off.
Now, when it comes to transportation here in the DFW, especially in Fort Worth, you're gonna need a vehicle because the public transit system here is just not the best in the country, right? Fort Worth really lacks when it comes to public transportation, and according to walkscore.com, it's rated a 21 out of 100. Everything is really spread out here in the DFW, and nothing is necessarily really convenient unless you live in the city center or in a suburb where a lot of shopping, grocery stores, and everything that you can need are in that area. But if you have to travel for your job or your kids are into a lot of activities, you're going to be driving around a bit, right? And typically it's going to take you at least 20 to 40 minutes to commute around the DFW. For example, when I dropped my son off at his football practice, I had to drive 25 minutes to get to the practice fields, right? And it's only about 12 miles down the road. So if you're thinking of moving to Fort Worth and not having a vehicle, you may want to second guess that decision, right? Yeah, you could definitely call an Uber, but I figure that's going to get pretty pricey pretty quickly. Now, in regards to the Fort Worth school system, I'm just going to keep it real with you. They aren't the best according to niche.com. The rating has improved a bit from 2019 from a C to a B minus, but for me personally, I wouldn't want to send my kids to Fort Worth ISD. I've spoken to quite a few people in those communities who feel like there's a lot of change that needs to happen over there. There's no real continuity with the administration. You know, they felt like their child really didn't receive the attention they needed at school, and they wish things were better than they were, right? I know for me, the schools are usually a big factor for us in our decision of where we're going to live when we move. So I'm pretty sure you may feel the same way. Now, you have some other options outside of the public schools, like different charter schools and homeschooling. That can definitely be a great option for you if you know your lifestyle allows it, honestly. But the moral of the story is just to be sure to do your research and make the best decision for you and your family. You can definitely reach out to us if we can help you make this a smooth move. And if you don't feel like Fort Worth is going to be the best fit for you, well, then you can check out these other areas right here.